Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of August. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. I'm Mark Broome. It's fabulous to have you with us this morning. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. At least 5 people are dead in flash floods after torrential rain slams Busan and most of southeastern Korea. The Korea Meteorological Administration says more heavy rain is forecast for later this week. No breakthrough in the parliamentary deadlock over a special bill on the Sewol-ho ferry sinking. The main opposition begins a sit-in protest at the National Assembly over the ruling party's rejection of a proposal to give the bereaved families more of a say in the probe. Plus, Congo says more than a dozen people may have died from the Ebola virus, and officials say it could be a different strain from the epidemic, which is causing huge problems throughout West Africa. Our top story this morning is a little closer to home, though, because at least 5 people have been killed and several others remain missing after torrential rains lashed southeastern Korea on Monday. Officials say up to 130 millimeters of rain an hour fell in Busan and nearby regions in Gyeongsang-namdo province on Monday afternoon. This triggered landslides, flooded houses, cars and streets, seriously disrupted air and rail services, and even temporarily halted the operation of a nuclear power plant after rain began to seep into a water intake facility. 3 women and a teenage girl were killed by sudden floodwaters in Busan. In the city of Changwon, a bus tipped over, as you can see there, into a flooded street. 1 person was killed in this incident, while at least 4 others remain missing. Officials say more than 270 millimeters of rain fell in Changwon as of Monday afternoon. The Korea Meteorological Administration says more heavy rain is forecast in the region later this week. Now, the political deadlock persists over a special bill to probe April's tragic ferry sinking that killed more than 300 people. Korea's ruling party has repeatedly rejected the opposition's proposal to give the bereaved families more of a say in the negotiations. The hold-up has completely thrown the schedule for parliamentary operations off track, as our Chae Yu-sun reports.
After the ruling party quickly rejected her proposal to invite the victims' families to negotiate the so-called Sewol-ho ferry bill, opposition floor leader Park Young-sun has given an ultimatum to the ruling party to agree to the 3-way talks by Monday.
The tripartite consultation, including the family representatives, would garner the families' consent and public sympathy. We will fight so long as the ruling party rejects the 3-way talks.
The ruling side did not budge.
We need to think about what precedent would be set having the stakeholders participate in negotiations under a representative democracy.
The ferry victims' families are demanding that a probe committee, which includes lawyers and legal experts selected by the families themselves, have the authority to investigate and indict. The ruling party says that would destroy the principle of criminal law. And so the Saenuri Party floor leaders meeting with the victims' families bore no fruit on Monday, with the 2 sides only confirming their differences. The months-long political discord has left Parliament in paralysis, with a lineup of major economy and reform-related bills kept in limbo. Ruling party leader Kim Moo-sung on Monday urged the opposition to work towards swift passage of the economic bills that are closely linked to the people's livelihoods. If the rival parties fail to break the impasse by Monday, it will not only further dampen President Park's economic and reform drive, but start a domino effect of delaying the parliament's government audit and budget planning for next year. Chae Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Well, the political parties have failed to break the impasse over this bill, and stepping up its protest of the ruling party's rejection of its proposal for trilateral dialogue with the family members to renegotiate the special bill. Members of the main opposition, the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, are holding a sit-in protest at the National Assembly. Along with this protest, opposition party floor leader Park Young-sun is currently reading out a letter of support for the bereaved families at the National Assembly. Park vowed on Monday that her party was ready to shift to a higher gear, to a more hardcore fight against the ruling party, because there was no compromise, met within Monday, and we'll bring you contents of the opposition's letter during our next newscast at noon Korea time. In other news, South Korea and the United States are reviewing the feasibility of holding a joint foreign and defense minister meeting in Washington in late October, following an agreement reached during summit talks between the two nations back in April. Officials say that should the meeting go ahead, both countries will discuss the timing of the transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul, as well as their combined operation capability against North Korea. Now, although the envisioned meeting would be around the time of the scheduled security consultative meeting in October, also in Washington, it will highly depend on the four ministers' schedules. If the meeting does happen, it will mark only the third meeting of its type between the two countries. North Korea is continuing to ramp up its condemnation of Seoul and Washington's joint military drills in a significant upturn in rhetoric against the so-called Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercises. The North's deputy ambassador to the UN says Pyongyang might consider unleashing a powerful counter-strike. Shin Se-min has more.
North Korea's deputy ambassador to UN Lee Dong-il says Pyongyang is ready to enhance its countermeasures to the joint military drills between Seoul and Washington.
The DPRK is close to the use of nuclear weapons. They are to take nuclear preemptive strike with all different means of power, including nuclear weapons.
The North Korean envoy also expressed his frustration with the UN Security Council after it failed to acknowledge Pyongyang's request for an emergency meeting in response to the South Korea-US drills. The ambassador said the UN's inaction sends the wrong message to the international community, and the Security Council is encouraging the US to continue its provocative and dangerous joint military exercises against the North. The North Korean official also showed a slightly softer side.
In all these proposals are reflected the principled position of the DPRK on easing of the tension and bringing the national unity.
North Korea has been heavily critical of the joint South Korea-US exercises as they kicked off on August 18th. Earlier this month, Lee called the drills, which mobilized tens of thousands of South Korean and US troops, were the root cause of the prolonged tension on the Korean peninsula. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, Russia's foreign minister has dismissed speculation that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is planning to travel to Russia soon for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Sergei Lavrov said on Monday that the reports out of South Korea were categorically not true. Earlier, a media outlet in Seoul reported that Kim was planning to go to Russia in late August or early September in a trip aimed at countering Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Seoul last month. South Korea's new ambassador to Japan says the Japanese government must apologize for its historical wrongdoings before any summit talks, one-on-one summit talks between President Park and Prime Minister Abe can take place. To smooth the way a little, Woo Hyung-soo has vowed to do what he can to improve the frosty bilateral ties. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
Korea's new ambassador to Japan says Seoul and Tokyo need summit talks, but only after Japan shows sincerity about its historical wrongdoings, including the sexual enslavement of Korean women. Speaking to reporters after his inauguration ceremony on Monday, Woo Hyung-soo, a four-term lawmaker, said talks need to take place in order to improve bilateral ties, a sentiment he believes is also shared by President Park Geun-hye. However, he added that before they are held, Japan must show some sort of action, especially regarding the sex slave issue, and when the summit is held, an outcome should be delivered. He said abnormal relations between the two countries, which have hit a low in recent months, should not continue, adding that he'll do all he can to better bilateral ties. Yu also highlighted the importance of security cooperation between the two amid continuous nuclear threats from North Korea. The ambassador also noted that next year should be a new starting point for Korea and Japan as they mark the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark.
Starting with the Ebola outbreak then, Congo now says it is observing new Ebola deaths, but it could in fact be dealing with a different strain from the one that has now killed more than 1,400 people in West Africa.
Indeed, Mark. A bit of trivia for you. Congo was where Ebola was first identified back in 1976, and this would be the 7th time the nation is dealing with an outbreak. And its health minister says as many as 15 people may have died so far in this latest round. He said one of the cases had tested positive for the Sudanese strain of Ebola, while another was a combination of the Sudanese and the Zaire strain, the Zaire strain being the one that's creating havoc in West African countries currently. Meanwhile, back in Liberia, a doctor there who had received the experimental drug ZMapp died last Sunday. Dr. Abraham Borbor was the deputy chief medical doctor at Liberia's largest hospital. In Ukraine, President Petro Poroshenko has dissolved his parliament and called for snap elections on October 26th. He said many of the parliamentary members were allies of the militant separatists waging war in the country's east. He also said the majority of Ukrainians wanted a new parliament. This as Ukraine's military says Russia has sent soldiers and weapons across the border to open a new front, a charge Moscow has denied. The leaders of Ukraine and Russia are set to meet on this Tuesday in a round of rare talks in Belarus's capital of Minsk as a separatist war that has killed more than 2,000 people now wages on. And the teenager whose untimely death had sparked a racial uproar in Ferguson, Missouri, has been put to rest. The funeral of 18-year-old Michael Brown was held Monday at Friendly Temple Missionary Baptist Church in St. Louis. More than 4,500 mourners attended. Among them were the parents of Trayvon Martin, children of Martin Luther King, public figures, and several White House aides. In one of 2 eulogies given, Reverend Al Sharpton condemned those who committed violence in Michael's name and called for a movement to clean up police forces and the communities at large. Brown was shot and killed by a white police officer on August 9th despite being unarmed. His body had undergone 3 autopsies as part of ongoing state and national investigations. And finally, French President François Hollande has dissolved his cabinet following open disagreements over the country's stagnant economy. The French economy minister had shot a blunt criticism against Hollande's policies, urging an end to austerity measures and replacing them with growth-focused policies. France has had virtually no economic growth this year, with an unemployment rate hovering around 10%. Prime Minister Manuel Valls has been asked to create a new cabinet, the second reshuffle in less than 5 months, reflecting President Hollande's struggle to push a pro-business platform.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Now, over on Wall Street, the S&P 500 index has pushed above 2,000 for the first time, but it failed to hold on through the close of trading on Monday. The index closed at a record 1,997. That's up 9 points or 0.5% from the previous day's close. Reaching the milestone, albeit for a short while, is an impressive accomplishment, especially given that the index had tumbled to below 700 in early 2009. Each of the 10 primary sectors on the S&P advanced on Monday despite cautious signals from the reduction in stimulus from the Federal Reserve to the simmering conflict between Ukraine and Russia. US stocks have been performing pretty well as of late. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has jumped in 7 of the last 10 sessions. The Nasdaq has notched gains in 8 of the last 10. Back here in Korea and in economic news, supported by government stimulus measures, domestic consumption in Korea seems to be showing strong signs of rebounding. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us how consumer confidence is steadily but surely recovering.
The economy is finally showing signs of regaining vitality after months of sluggish domestic consumption following April's ferry disaster. Over the past few days, stores saw sales of gift sets soaring ahead of next month's Chuseok holidays or the Korean Thanksgiving holidays. The country's 4 major retailers say gift purchases, including fish and other food products, jumped as much as 100% on year. Data by the Ministry of Strategy and Finance indicates an increase in private consumption in July. Real estate transactions increased more than 90% last month compared to the same period last year, while credit card transactions increased by more than 5%. The improvements came shortly after the government unveiled a string of stimulus measures, including steps to make it easier for home buyers to borrow money from banks. Experts expect consumer confidence to gradually keep improving in the latter half of this year, given that the central bank has made it clear it will seek easier monetary policy to help spur economic recovery. The Bank of Korea cut its base rate by 0.25 percentage point, ending a 15-month freeze earlier this month. But in order to greatly improve consumer confidence in the months to come, Im No-jung from Seoul-based IM Securities and Investment emphasized the need to improve the employment rate.
Deregulation in the service sector, such as medical and the legal sectors, would help increase the country's employment rate, which could then increase the amount of consumer power among households.
He adds the rate of increase of private consumption is expected to rise to the 2% range in the latter half of this year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea's largest auto group appears to be losing a bit of ground here in the domestic Korean market. According to the Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association, the combined market share of Hyundai Motor and its sister brand Kia Motors stood at 69.5% during the first half of the year. It's the first time in 7 years that the figure has fallen below 70%. This comes on the back of the increased presence of imported cars, which accounted for 12.4% of the Korean market in the first half. That's a nearly 3-fold increase compared to 2007. Now, one area where we can see consumption growth in Korea is in the very fiercely competitive retail market. Amid this cutthroat industry, department stores are doing everything they can to lure in the big spenders. One strategy involves targeting a specific group of consumers with deep pockets and is designating an entire section just for them. Hwang Ji-hye has more.
From suits, shirts, and briefcases to shoes and golf accessories, this section of a mall has just about everything a man would want to buy at a department store. It's called an exclusive area for men.
In the past, I had to go from floor to floor looking for things, but here they have everything I need, so it's very convenient.
With a growing number of male customers taking their wallets to local department stores, marketing teams have decided to set aside a zone just for them. Sales from male shoppers has been rising steadily over recent years, with the figure jumping more than 30% each year since 2011. The exclusive sections have been a popular draw not just for men, but for other segments of the population as well. Long rows of dried pollocks attract mothers looking for dinner items. This corner in a liquor store is dedicated solely to Korean traditional drinks. Here, shoppers can find any and all kinds of local alcoholic beverages.
I am delighted to see all kinds of local drinks here, especially these days when Korean traditional drinks have lost some of their customers to foreign brands.
Sales managers explain that the move has helped them raise sales and drop prices as they're able to make direct deals with producers.
By operating a differentiated service, we provide not only something to see, but also cheaper prices. We are getting good reviews from customers.
Amid increased competition among department stores, they're encouraging customers to open up their wallets through this unique form of marketing. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 LPGA Canadian Pacific Women's Open as Korean golfers dominated the event, finishing first, second, and third. Now, first off, 24-year-old Yoo So-yeon wins her first LPGA Tour title in 2 years as she finished first, shooting a 23 under par overall thanks to an amazing first-round performance. And celebrating the win with her was Chen Ah-yeon and Park In-bi, who finished second and third respectively, as the second-ranked Park In-bi barely misses out on getting her #1 world ranking back once again. And now moving over to domestic baseball, where the KBO held their 2015 rookie draft with 10 teams looking to bolster a team with young talents who will wear their uniforms next season. With 103 players being selected on Monday, the Hanwha Eagles, who finished dead last during the 2013 season, chose Kim Min-woo with their very first pick. The monster pitcher, who boasts a 150-km/h fastball, holds a 9-1 record with an ERA of 1.35 in 15 national tournament games and is expected to be pro-ready next season. Now, the draft is the second KBO draft that takes place each year. Well, speaking of the KBO, with the Hanwha Eagles and the Kia Tigers getting their Sunday's game rained out, they made up that game on Monday. So let's take a look at the highlights. And of course, going into the game, we go over to the first inning of the game. Bases loaded for Felix Pie. That's a double to right center field, two-man score, and it's 2-0 Hanwha. Next batter, Kim Tae-won singles to right, two more runners score, and the Hanwha Eagles take an early 4-0 lead. Fast forward to the sixth inning, Felix Pie, this time a two-run shot to deep right field, and it's now 6-0. Meanwhile, Andrew Albers throwing a complete game shutout, giving up just 3 hits in the entire game, as the Hanwha Eagles cruise through 9-0, your final score. Now, more baseball, this time over to the 2014 International Women's Baseball Tournament, where Korea faced off against Japan in the final. And with Japan striking early with a 10-run first inning, Korea just could not bounce back, losing the game 19-1. And now, with that said, finishing things off in tennis, the 2014 U.S. Open kicked off in New York, and tennis fans are getting excited for the season's final Grand Slam. So let's take a look at some of the players to look forward to. Now, first off, over on the women's side, you can bet that Serena Williams will be the clear favorite, winning 5 U.S. Open titles, including the past 2 tournaments. But 5th seed Maria Sharapova and 2nd seed Simona Halep look to challenge her as the other 2 contenders. Meanwhile, over on the men's side, Roger Federer is looking pretty nice without Novak Djokovic nor Andy Murray in his half of the draw, as he looks to win his 6th U.S. Open title. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, torrential rain in the southern parts of the country caused serious damages for some parts in the down south, but most of the rain clouds have moved away overnight, except some parts in the east. But for today, rest of the country will have a mix of clouds and sun throughout the day, and temperatures are expected to be a couple of degrees higher than yesterday, with highs hovering in the upper 20s. So let's take a closer look at those temperatures. The afternoon high in the capital, Gwangju and Busan, will make it to 28, while Daegu will rise to 29 this afternoon. And for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 28 as well, and Dokdo should see highs of 22 later in the day. Now, the weather outlook for the remainder of the week here in Seoul is looking good. We'll get more sun as we head into the end of the week, and temperatures will be remaining above the seasonal averages. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Have a great day, and thanks ever so much for watching. I'm Mark Broome, and I'll be back with Ojinju at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.